Hey Scott 80 here. Is the grass is greener mentality prevalent here with foreigners in the Philippines? I've noticed that a lot of foreigners that come here, they will sort of have this grass is greener mentality where they'll hate everything about where they're coming from, but they'll sugarcoat everything that's happening here. And it's almost like they'll take all the negative things from their country in the West, and they'll dwell on all the negative, and then they'll look at only the positive things here in the Philippines and dwell on the positive and sugarcoat everything. Then you have a comparison that's completely ridiculous. And I've noticed that with a lot of foreign guys here. They do have a grass is greener mentality, and they're almost in denial because they want things to be perfect wherever they're deciding to go. And it's never like that. No matter where you're going, you got to look at the big picture, and you got to also think about, okay, what am I really getting into? What do I really know about the place I'm going to? And in many cases, they know very little about here. And there's a way around that, and it's quite simple. That is going to that place, visiting that place many times, and then doing a trial run and living there for a few months. Then you get a better feel for the place. You know, of course, when you come here the first couple of times, you're probably coming on vacation. And whenever you're on vacation, you're having fun. You're also spending a lot of money, but you're having fun. And then that vacation feel, you equate this place to that type of feeling you had when you were on vacation. But when you're living here, it's completely different. You're not on vacation. So that whole feeling of being on vacation is gone when you're here, living here. And I think a lot of guys make that mistake, and they think it's going to be a permanent vacation. Well, no, of course not. And that's part of the reason why some guys get into some problems. Part of the reason why some guys end up, not liking it and leaving. The average stay for an expat in the Philippines is 3.5 years. That's it. After that, most move on. Fact is, whenever you're living somewhere or going to move somewhere, you got to look at the big picture, and that includes the good and the bad and the really bad. And once you figure all that out, then you can properly make a decision, and you can also understand how you're going to live and how it's going to be, and not run into problems where you might run into something that you're not expecting. And these unexpected things can cost money, and if you're not prepared, it's all about preparation. And part of being prepared is understanding what you're getting into. And if you're sugarcoating a place because you hate where you're coming from so much that you're blinded by this new thing that you're into, this new place you're going to, you're blinded by this grass is greener mentality. And it's really, that's what it is. It's blinding people because they're not understanding what they're getting into because they're sugarcoating too much. So aside from keeping up to date with current events, there's something else you got to keep in mind. And I hate to say it, but don't believe everything you hear on YouTube. There is a lot of bullshit on YouTube. There is a lot of one-sided information, a lot of sugarcoating, a lot of fake praise, and this is done for clicks. You got to remember, a lot of people are doing YouTube for money. They don't give a shit about telling the truth. In the case of the Philippines and expats, a lot of them are going to try and sell this fantasy to these guys who will believe it. They'll fall for it. And that's what gets them clicks. Guys, I'm just trying to be real here. There are a lot of Westerners who are disenfranchised with the West. They're not happy with the political direction, the feminized society, and many other things. And these are the targets for these certain vloggers who are trying to sell a fantasy. They're trying to dupe these guys who have never been to the Philippines before. Well, best thing is to go and see for yourself. A vlogger, his name is It's Me. That's his channel's name. And he just recently moved to the Philippines. And he had looked like he had a successful thing going in the West. But he just wanted out of the rat race. And there's nothing wrong with early retirement if you can swing it. But the way he had this video after 1 month in the Philippines, 1 month here. It was in, I think in Negros. And after 1 month, how can you possibly even gauge a place after 1 month when you're going to move there and live there? But anyway, he kept saying how great it is, how wonderful it is in paradise, and how much he hated it back home. Well, he's still on that phase, the honeymoon phase, where he's like still on vacation. And he has that vacation mindset when he's in the Philippines. when he's here, he's got that feeling like he's on vacation. Oh, great! I don't have to work. I'm here chilling out. I'm here relaxing. Well, that's, you know what? Give it another year or two, and he won't have that same mindset. And that's what I'm saying. So rather than trashing the West, and you also got to understand, the only reason he was able to retire here at a young age, I think he's 45 years old. The only reason he was able to do that is because he was lucky enough and privileged enough to grow up and be born in the West and grow up in the West and have a career, be educated in the West and have that career. That's the only reason he can swing it. Yet he trashes the whole thing. He trashes the rat race. But as you can tell, it bugs me when guys come here, Western guys come here and say, oh, we love it here. Okay, that's great, you love it here, but don't trash where you came from, because most of the people in the world would die to trade places with you. You know, you're very privileged. Another aspect of the grass is greener syndrome is believing everything you see and hear from these vloggers and influencers and people on social media. You know, you're not seeing their whole lives. You're only seeing the best of their lives. You know, you're not seeing them when they're up all night editing a video. You're not seeing them if they're working remotely and they have to work all through the night, because that's the time zone difference between a place like the Philippines and their country. You know, you're not seeing that. And there's some things that can stress people out in a developing nation, in an emerging economy. There's always things that stress people out, but these influencers and vloggers will never show that. They'll never show them getting stressed. It's like a facade. They'll say, oh, our life is perfect, we live in paradise, but they're not showing you the big picture. You know, nobody's life is absolutely perfect. And also what you also have to think about is that if that was perfection, if everyone who went to these places and quit their job actually had a perfect life, then everyone else would do the same thing. The fact is that for the vast majority of people, this is not going to work. And for the vast majority of people, they're going to have to work, and they're not going to be able to do that. But of course, for some people, it worked. They had a good savings, investments, passive income. Maybe they're trust fund babies. Maybe they got a nice inheritance. And there's nothing wrong with that, but they're not telling you that. And they're not telling you they have a really good remote job. So let me know in the comment section if you agree with me or not about the grass is greener syndrome. A lot of foreigners and expats, I believe, have this. And, you know, wherever you're moving to, whether you're moving from Canada to a place like Philippines or vice versa, there's pros and cons. And I think a lot of these influencers and the vloggers are only showing, you know, the positives, and they're not showing the big picture. And that's fine, but you just have to realize that that's not all going to be hunky-dory. The world isn't unicorns and rainbows, and you're going to have to realize that living in a developing nation isn't going to be all perfect. And I think most guys eventually realize that, and some will leave because they just can't do it. But the best thing to do is do a trial run. Don't believe all the hype. Don't believe everything you hear and see on social media and on YouTube. That's the main thing. Go there yourself and see for yourself. It's not going to be for everybody, but this grass is greener syndrome is definitely a problem for some guys. You know, they hate where they're coming from so much that they'll just kind of be blinded by everything that's going on around them. Even if it's not all perfect, there's negative things too, but they won't see that because they're so blinded by the grass is greener syndrome.